KZOZ.com. That's how you can catch this show live. Don't forget our podcast lives there. So if you only catch part of the show, but you want to hear the whole thing, because maybe we said we get somebody like, Keith and Justin coming in from the Young Dubliners and you're a big fan, you could catch it a little bit later on. Go to KZOZ.com, click on the Jeff and Jeremy page. You could start there. Also search for us on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts.
Google's making it to where you can be a complete podcast dummy. And
you're going to bring up Swoot.
I
thought this was fake.
No. Swoot's great.
Is Swoot an app?
Swoot's great, but probably not going to outlast Google. Swoot is awesome.
Do I need to download Swoot?
I love Swoot.
All right, I'm going to go do it.
It's brand new, though. I'm going to tell you this right now. It's brand new.
Well, you could be maybe people should start investing in something.
It unveiled like 3 weeks ago.
Swoot.
But
there it is. With friends.
As far as a podcast interface is concerned, it's got all the right ideas. But now, I think Google, maybe they heard the Swoot footsteps, which I don't know what Swoot footsteps sound like. Are they squishy? Are they little tappy?
No,
footsteps?
It's like air going swishing almost. Swoot, swoot.
I love made up words of apps. It's awesome. It's the best thing.
That's what I should do.
Like Google is a made up word, right?
I make up a lot of words.
So their developer conference took place yesterday, and now let's say you wanted to search yesterday's Kenny Lee Lewis podcast where we're talking to him about the nerves in his hand and all that stuff. As long as we put that in the description of the podcast when we upload the podcast on the back end, you will be able to search that out in Google because it'll take you to the podcast. They're going to start indexing podcasts based on whatever the podcast is about.
Well, you do this every day, right?
Yeah, but the difference is, the descriptions are there, but nobody's scrolling those descriptions. Basically, you have to say Jeff and Jeremy podcast, Jeff and Jeremy podcast, Jeff and Jeremy podcast. But let's say you're cruising by a radio station or a friend tells you about a podcast, but you forget the name of the host of the podcast. And let's say it was about, like last week I read that's how podcasts are. You feel like you're reading a book, but you're actually being told a story. I heard a podcast about North Tucson, how in North Tucson I'm sorry, not Tucson, Tulsa. I get Tucson and Tulsa always mixed up.
It happens.
In North Tulsa, there are $11 stores, like Dollar General, Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, and 0 grocery stores. Zero. None at all. And the reason being is because it's a very low-income part of Tulsa, and dollar stores do better. But the problem with that is the residents of North Tulsa don't get the nutrients they need because dollar stores can't carry things like lettuce and
I remember you were talking about
apples,
this.
carrots.
We talked about this a little bit.
They have potatoes. That's it. So people are going in there eating Twinkies, drinking Arizona iced tea, things that you find at a dollar store.
They're just taking diabetes pills.
Yes, exactly. So
now
now in these communities, you're having these health problems because there's $11 stores to choose from and no grocery stores to choose from. So the cost of living...
You don't get organically grown,
the cost of living
grass-fed.
in these communities
Twinkies.
Skyrockets because they have no grocery stores to go to, but they got a lot of dollar stores, so they're saving it up front but paying for it in the end. And it was a highly entertaining podcast. Now, based on that information that I just told you right there, because I forget the name of the podcast, I gotta be honest with you. I think it was an NPR production, but I have no idea what the name of the podcast was. You could type in podcast about North Tulsa dollar stores, and Google's going to pull it up immediately.
That's pretty cool.
And then you could listen to it directly from the search. You can just click on it, and Google Podcast is going to be integrated into Google search.
So whatever you do, if you want a podcast, like let's say somebody wanted to hear "Man Without a Face," they wanted to hear what it was.
Man without a face,
or that's probably how we'll have to start identifying. Face without eyes, eyes without a face, eyes without a face.
Mel Gibson movie, Man Without a Face.
And when you see if you want to hear the Eyes Without a Face podcast, you would type in "Eyes Without a Face podcast," and then it would probably take you to ours.
Unless there's a podcast that's called Eyes Without a Face.
Then you would want to type in Man Without a Face.
See.
Whatever you do, make sure the tag on there is Man Without a Face.
Swoot, since it's our best option right now, before Google goes all rogue and decides to
how Swoot
hone in their their search skills, like they always show that they can. Would you say the eyes without a face?
I said man without a face, but yeah, eyes without a face.
Should I search for man without a face, or I'll go to the man without a face? I bet you
no one else is doing man without a face.
700,000 podcasts. I bet you that there's a man without a face podcast.
FACE. I know you know how to spell it.
Hey, launch your podcast. Launch your podcast. Man without a face, right there.
Nobody's got it.
Except for yours would be man without a face and a book.
What's the book for?
Oh, you don't need it if you don't have a face, right? Can't read it anyways.
Oh, God.
Subscribe to the Jeff and Jeremy podcast now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. It's your Central Coast commute-friendly podcast.